Let's play naughty or nice. That time of year, as my son Robbie said, it's December now, Dad. I have to be nice. Like, dude, you're nice all year round, and you should continue to be nice all year round. But great job doing it in December. It's time for Santa to make his list and check it twice. I'm reading this. I didn't write this, but we got two of our own elves here, Brady and Deuce. Telling St. Nick whether the NFL has been naughty or nice this year. I'll go down the list, and you guys tell me whether these teams, players, and other NFL personnel or hangers on.
Can I start off with a group that you probably don't have in this list?
Yes, absolutely.
Officials.
Oh, naughty.
We should have definitely started off with them.
Look at producer Harry.
He was ready.
Naughty list. The NFL
Harry said, "Don't even worry about it, Brady. I'll give you the answer."
Yeah. This has been. You know what's weird about this year in officiating though? It has been so clearly terrible. But I think it jumped the shark for me this year. I used to spend a lot of time complaining about the officials, especially when it came to the fact that we now have legalized gambling. You were having outcomes determined by the three blind mice carrying around chains. Just like, although like sometimes it's like incredibly accurate with those. It's wild, like million dollar swings on these like very extremely subjective calls. You have the pass interference at the end of the Chiefs Packers game. It feels like it's been so egregious this year that I don't even can't even muster the energy to be that mad about it. But I agree. It's been bad. And I think the NFL really does a disservice to its fans and to the product itself in the way that they blindly defend and go about defending these refs instead of just assisting them by giving them more like transparent replay.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's the most concerning, right? Is that the NFL, like you said, will have come out and in support. And I guess from a business standpoint, like what else can you do, right? One, they need to make these guys full-time. Two, I know they've talked about the replays. Each coach used to have a challenge for a call. They were talking about how that slowed the game down. But I feel like with all the penalties they're calling now, it's slowing the game down anyway. So why not get it right? Why not take the time to actually get the calls right? And I think the biggest thing with fans and players and coaches together is that, right, too many subjective calls, right? There needs to be some black and white in regards to the rules and certain calls, right? Like the Kadarius Toney one, that was a clear foul. He was offside. To me, that's not a subjective call. But too many of these, illegal contact penalties or PI penalties or non-PI penalties, there's too much subjectiveness to it in regards to the ref not being consistent on how they're calling each and every game. I think if there was consistency, nobody would trip, right? If it was going to be a petty foul that every ref was calling, then I think everybody would be mad, but they'd be like, well, at least it's been consistent. We all know what we're going to get this game, right? But it's literally been like a roller coaster, Brady and Will, up and down. Like 1 week they'll call it, the next week they don't call it. I just think everybody wants consistency in the calls. And if you're going to call something, make sure it's blatant. Like don't call something that is subjective. Make sure it's a blatant call, especially at the end of games. Now, I know that's not supposed to have a determining factor for when a ref calls it, but it's just like the last thing you want on Monday morning is for people to talk about, man, did you see the ref blow that game? Like, let the players decide who wins and loses the game. Now, again, I know Patrick Mahomes heated earlier this year. That wasn't a subjective call. Like, Kadarius Toney was clearly offside. That needed to be called. But anything as far as while the live bullets are going, that is subjective. I think there needs to be a black and white in regards to the rule book in regards to refs actually calling things.
I mean, the hard part about that is there's always going to be subjectivity to things, right?
Human element.
There's a human element, but even with replay, like I think one of the issues that most fans, and maybe you guys relate to this or not, is when you watch something slowed down in slow-mo on replay, our sense of timing for what we think, however you want to describe a football move, what have you, or even the amount of time a defender has to alter his body before he hits a guy in a legal manner.
Correct.
All of that is altered because now we see it slow-mo. We're like, oh my gosh, like he had plenty of time, or it looks like a catch. Well, yeah, time frame it does, but that's not how the game's officiated. The NFL and really all sports, they are victim of their own success in regards to how successful they've been at, getting TV networks to continue to push the envelope of how much better our viewing is, right? Like we now at home, in most cases, have a better 360-degree view of the game than officials. And because of that, we now have platforms to voice our opinions and our displeasure. And because of that, it puts more scrutiny under the officials. Now, by and large, the officials do a good job. They probably 90% of the time get calls right or non-calls right. There's that 10% that tends to be exposed. And Leger, as you point out, like the inconsistencies, I think are going to exist because there's a human element. Every crew is different, and no different than those list of emphases that, or emphasis to certain penalties, whatever it may be, whether it's defensive holding or offsides this year they've talked about.
Yeah,
every group's going to then implement that in a different way, right? Yeah. Like if our boss tells all three of us something, Will literally leave this podcast right now to go do it. He'll forget exactly what he's doing because he's a company man like that.
Absolutely.
Me and Shay might be like, all right, after we're done with the pod, we'll go do what we're asked to do.
No, it's a former professional athletes. I'm like, sure thing, boss. What you need?
I'll go do it right now.
Absolutely. I'd love to dump a bucket of slime on my head.
I'll tell you a little secret too, dudes. I used to this is back when Port used to be here. I used to try to text
ridiculous.
Port, tell Will that he needs to cut his hair just to see how Will would react about it. Then we joke about it afterwards.
And Port would text me like, you need to get a haircut. I'd be like, no problem, boss. And then like the next day I'd be having a haircut.
Yes, sir. I'm right over there. Yep.
It's a contract here. Absolutely. Right on it, Chief.
Only because that's how you can mess with Will like that. But my point is this. Each official takes those points of emphasis and probably the guidance given from the NFL a lot different, right? Like some are like, all right, like this is what they want. This is what I need to give them. So if it's borderline, I'm going to call it. Some are like, well, no, it has to be definitive in my mind, right? And the only issue I've got with the Kadarius Toney penalty, because I think we'd all agree, like, yeah, he was offsides, right?
Yeah.
Is usually there's a warning before that. Like Andy Reid pointed out, and I'm not making an excuse for them. I'm just saying from experience, like even for holding, like typically they'll like warn a guy, like don't do that again, or
don't do it again.
Like, like they'll usually tell them that. They'll say like, hey, don't do that again, or even like for a hard count. Like if you started bobbing too much, or like really the secret is like you try to, like what I would try to do if I was going to use a count where I knew we were going to try to draw them off sides, I put my hands underneath center, but I dropped them lower because I wanted the D-line to see my hands move, and I was going to try to see if I could get them to draw them offside that way. And the problem is sometimes those officials would see it. And so they would come back and be like, hey, don't do that again if you're going to do a hard count.
I'm going to throw a flag.
And you obviously couldn't do it if you were actually going to run a cadence or maybe we're going to snap the football. But there's little secrets like that you try to like kind of sneak and get those defensive linemen in because they're looking for that stuff. So
for sure.
That's the problem is the officiating. They've been naughty. And as far as the fixes, there's probably some things you could do. But unfortunately, they're going to get a lump of coal this year for Christmas.
Well, and look, like television, I've been rewatching 24. You remember Jack Bauer, obviously,
of course, yeah.
And
beep,
like, beep beep. It's not great. You're like, okay, you know what? Maybe like it was fine with the commercials. Like it goes to commercial, but it's like back to back to back. But the quality is just terrible. It's like SD, and it made me think back because I remember when it came out. I remember where I was living in Raleigh. With we had some roommates, young out of college, theoretically out of college. And you've got, like we got this like big box TV. Like that's what we watch football games on. Like, you guys were probably playing in the NFL then. And or like, and like the quality was terrible. And it is the technological advancements over the last 15 years, officiating it's been difficult to keep up with. But let's move on. Brady mentioned the hard count stuff. So let's go with this one. Let's go through some of these ones kind of
here
fast.
We go.
Jason Kelsey caught moving the ball forward several inches before the brotherly shove. Naughty or nice?
Naughty, but every center does this. And they do it, by the way, every play if they can, until someone points it out.
Okay.
I think Kelsey even said this in the press conference. He was like, I got to be better. I know I can't do that. But it's like to Brady's point, like, they've been doing that since football started. Like, so it's nothing new. I think Brady, if you watch it in slow mo, he moves it up a little bit, but then he tries to get a little bit more. I think if he does
a little too much,
if he doesn't do the second one, I think he gets away with it. Yeah.
All right,
look, man, this is sports. Like, we're all out there trying to push the limits of what will be allowed and what won't be allowed. Like, dudes, I'm sure it happens with you between what an offensive lineman's trying to do and what you're doing as a defensive lineman, right?
Correct.
Like, that's the whole point of it. That's sports. Like, you're trying to win, and in order
habitual
to win,
line crossers,
like
literal
like,
habitual line
here's the thing
steppers.
is, everyone wants to hear about the locker room. Everyone wants to hear about what goes on in games. Like, the reality is, like, yeah, everyone's pushing the envelope, jumping across the line, whatever it is, because they want to win. And, like, there's a nastiness to that. And it's not going to look good from people on the outside who've never been in that arena. But, like, that's the reality to it. So, yeah, that stuff goes on all the time. Like, there's countless things that people do. Like,
what did Pete Prisco? What did Pete Prisco say he did at the bottom of the pile in high school?
He would try to make sure that young men could no longer have kids by how he did.
I'd grab him by that. I'd grab him by that and I'd twist. And you're like, what is wrong with you?
He would act like he's picking grapes, you know?
Yeah.
I remember there was one time when the ref set the ball down. I kind of moved it back half a yard with my foot.
Yeah.
The only thing is you got to be careful. That's the penalty.
Dude, you ever laid on a dude and tried to like slow him up?
2-minute drill? There was a time I laid on a dude and then act like I was getting up and then fell back down on him.
Yeah. Hey, you got to push the envelope. Tommy Cutlets pushed the envelope with his cash flow. Tommy Cutlets DeVito doubled his price to appear at a pizza shop after success with the Giants from $10,000 to $20,000. But then, after a kerfluffle ensued, thanks Darren Ravel, Cutlets showed up unpaid to the pizza shop and made sodas with the owner. Naughty, nice, both. It's Mike Florio. Mike Florio got what's the thing that happens when Twitter users reported as false? They got the community guidelines listed below a PFT tweet.
That was the last time.
Yeah, I'm gonna say nice because if you dive into this, it was more so his agent that trumped up the prices after DeVito had another big win, right? Tommy DeVito since then is hired new marketing agency, right? And his current agent is just going to do football related things, right? He's not going to do his off the field marketing anymore. So I thought it was dope by Tommy DeVito. He was supposed to make 10,000, then his agent tried to trump it up to 20 because he was hot. And you know how it is, Brady. People try to strike while the iron is hot. But DeVito decided, you know what? I'm going to do this unpaid, do the right thing. And he's also come out and said he's tired of everybody using, this DeVito Linsanity type thing. He just wants to play football right now.
Yeah. Here's the problem. That's one thing to say it, but he's kind of leaned into it too a little bit.
Oh, 100%.
He's for sure on the nice list. He handled this as good as you could have, considering how things went. And this is the hard part about, players when you hire out representation is they're a representation of you.
Yep.
And oftentimes how they conduct themselves in business represents how you conduct yourself in business. So that's the tough part. And honestly, I don't blame his agent for trying to get more money if they're trying to do an appearance.
Cash.
The problem with it is it sounded like they had a verbal agreement.
Correct.
And I don't care if we want to get into the weeds legally, if it's binding or not, don't care. Once you give a guy your word, all right, and then you come back later and we're doubling it, that's where it's beside the point. He's trying to make money for his client. That's okay. $10,000 for an appearance for the New York Giants starting quarterback right now. That's probably the market rate, if not more. The reality is, though, you can't go back on a verbal agreement with someone, especially small business like that. It's just a bad look. So I was glad Tommy decided, to show up anyway, not get paid for it. Sounds like they're doing something for charity too in the future, which is awesome. Using this kind of negative to be a positive. And then, publicly changed up his representation, which is another huge step. Hey, man, telling your agent, you need to stop doing this. You can't represent me in that way anymore. You cross that line. I'm not willing to do it again.
Yeah,
so let's have someone else.
You be an agent. I'm going to get a marketing rep. That needs to be separated.
This really went from him looking like a guy who's trying to capitalize on something, take advantage, to now looking like, hey, man, this is just a young guy who's trying to do it right. And so good for him. He's on the nice list. But I don't blame his agent either. I just blame the manner in which he kind of handled it, because that's what your agent's supposed to do. He's supposed to try to get you as much money as he possibly can. Because this window of fame right now, we don't know if it's the next few weeks or if it's going to be for years.
Could be one more game, and that's it.
Yeah.
All right. Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel came out and gave his players, so there's a lot of chatter about the Dolphins not beating anybody good. And McDaniel said, I told my players, and I'm going to tell you guys, you can tell the media this week, F off, with all due respect. He's like, all due respect, F off. Which I mean, like, I love Mike McDaniel. Everybody loves Mike McDaniel. I'm going to say that this is both naughty and nice.
No, you can't hedge.
I'll say
this is a reading between the lines.
I like that. Oh, Harry, nice work.
Harry, I see you, Harry.
Jingle bells, jingle bells. What do you guys think? Naughty or nice here?
It's just naughty. I say it's naughty just because.
Yes, it is an F-bomb.
Is it a lie though? like Brady, is it a lie? Like, have they beat anybody with a winning record?
No.
That's why this week's game's so big, though, right?
But is it though? Because if you look at the Cowboys on the road, they've been putrid. Like, to me, next week's game,
it's a fraud off, is what it is.
Yeah, to me, next week's game versus the Ravens on the road, that lets me know what this Miami Dolphins team truly is, right? Going on the road, because if they don't get the number 1 seed, they're probably going to have to go to Baltimore.
They might. If they lose out, they can miss the playoffs.
No, they can't. I don't think that. Well, yeah, they could.
No, they can't. It's really unrealistic.
It's unrealistic for them to lose out.
That's something you writers talk about.
Dude, if they lose to the Cowboys and lose to the Ravens and are 0-5 against teams with a winning record, and then lose to the Bills and lose the division, it's a bad look.
It's a bad look, but they still could probably make the playoffs as a 10-win team.
The strange thing is, I think if they win this week, they're in the playoffs.
They can even lose and get in the playoffs. I'm just saying that. Look, the Dolphins are. They're a fun team.
Pick a side, Will. Are they naughty or nice?
Naughty. Now I'm naughty. All right. I'm not naughty. The Dolphins are naughty. Little lady, young lady, pop superstar Taylor Swift starts dating Travis Kelce and has turned an entire new market onto
Swift
football while simultaneously cussing a bunch in the what a weird tweet that is. I videotaped her. I videotaped the TV. She's like dropping F-bombs every which way. She's
got in that box now. That's sweet.
I mean, some would say she might be naughty for hooking up with Travis Kelce, whatever they're doing.
Oh.
Could be.
They're both in fantastic shape.
Who said nice?
No, I think it's naughty.
I'm going to say nice in perspective of the NFL, because it's a whole new demographic that the NFL is getting with Taylor Swift and the Swifties coming on board, right? You're gonna have more, wives that stay at home that are gonna lock in and want to watch football games because Travis Kelce is dating Taylor Swift, right? And you get a whole nother group of young teenage girls that are gonna want to watch football now too, of Taylor Swift. You guys hear that too?
Did that come through? I thought I muted it on the thing. It's there may be an emergency thing about happening at this hotel. So let's speed this up and we'll get to I agree there. Taylor Swift. I think nice. I like the Taylor Swift storyline. I like the fact that it's a part of the NFL. I think we'll look back on the 2023 season and say that was the Taylor Swift season. There's backup quarterbacks and Taylor Swift.